Hey, we're Young the Giant, and this is SoundAdvice. I think preparation is, not to quote Iverson, but practice. I don't know. We don't really do. Like, we've been together for such a long time. We have such a great connection when we perform together. We do rehearse, and usually it's for new songs, and so I think it's just our shared time together. We've been on the stage with each other for the better part of 15 years or so. So I think we're just here to have fun today and just enjoy this last bit of time before a long tour begins in about a month.
We lived in a bunch of places together while we were on our first record label contract. We were in a van and trailer for a couple years. Like, you just start to understand when people need a break. You could kind of read each other, and instead of just poking. It's like, okay, well, Fran seems like he's not in the greatest mood. Like, how do we support that and find ways to just help each other feel better? Everyone kind of has their own road hobbies. Like, I love to go run. Samir likes to go find random coffee shops and read and look like an intellectual.
Just look like one.
Just look, yeah. But yeah, I mean, the big part I think is that sort of understanding that we're all going through this at the same time and we want each other to be happy. So how do we facilitate that?
No matter what happens throughout the day on tour, I think getting on stage together is a great kind of equalizer where we get on stage and just remember, why we're doing what we're doing, and that it's about the music and that it's about this amazing connection, not only between us, but the people who come out and enjoy our music and our songs.
I think we've learned how to collaborate differently over the years. Like, when we were younger, we would kind of just get in a room and hash it out, and then we all got better at recording ourselves eventually. So then it was more sharing files, and now we've actually kind of gone back to just creating space for us to create and not be distracted. And that's kind of what the LP6 has been so far, is actually just going to a studio or a location with each other and just doing work for 3 days and then leaving it. And I think that's the best of both worlds, where we can kind of create the this genesis of the idea and then also be able to go home and work on fine-tuning maybe an individual idea for that greater idea. Yeah,
I think the most important thing for us is that the greatest idea should rise to the top, and it's not always a perfect concept. It's not 100% achieved all the time, but I think for the most part that's our goal, that the best idea should win, and it shouldn't matter where it comes from or who it comes from or how it's split. It's just that the best idea is what we should go with. I mean, I think it's harnessing all the things that we've learned over the last, our whole career, and taking in the parts that worked for each record and putting into a new process. It's about simplicity, accessing joy, and it's funny because Young the Giant in itself, that term, when people would ask us what it meant, it was almost like we hated answering that question because, in all honesty, I think it was just it sounded cool to us. And as we were getting older, it is this ode to youth and to finding inspiration in the beauty in everyday life, in the most mundane things or just in everything, and being able to access joy and having fun together in the studio again. And I think that's what this album has been about so far.
I think the last record, really, for us, it was the first time we stepped out of the major record label system, and we were able to, I think, really craft a sonic narrative and tell a story pretty cohesively, though it is an epic, and you have to really dive into it to get it. I do think it's very cohesive and a really good cornerstone of our career, of being we've reached this I guess the top of the hill at some point, and we have a view of what we've done and can see behind us, but it can also see in front of us of what we can also create in the future. So I think this last record of just going out and not being on a major record label, putting out in the world and having some success with it has just been kind of more than I could have asked for. And yeah, I'm just excited for the future now.
When we were on our first ever tour in 2009, I want to say, first ever national tour, we went on tour with a band called Minus the Bear, and then there was a band in between called Everest, and we were by far the youngest. We were brand new. Everyone knew we were green, so they were kind of like hazing us the whole time. We kind of earned their respect towards the end of the 30-date tour, and the singer from Everest, he kind of said to me, you have a very beautiful voice, and don't try and hide it. Don't try and mask it and pretend it's to be something else, because there is a pressure within alternative music to sound more masculine. And he said, just be yourself and don't lose sight of your voice. And I think that's something that I've remembered.
You should sign this first record label contract. It's going to be awesome. Everything's going to be so great. I think, to kind of tie on to the last question a little bit with that in mind, ultimately, you're going to be your own best advocate. It doesn't matter. You can have the best management, best label partners, best agent, all that. At the end of the day, you're the one who's on stage. You're the one who's in the studio. So you have to really trust yourself. And that's actually something Mikey Einziger from Incubus told us really early on. And it kind of fell on deaf ears because we're still like, oh, man, we got signed. We thought getting signed was that's it. You've made it. And it kind of took a little while to realize that was just the starting point. And that you really needed to be able to have the ability and the stamina to continue being an advocate for yourself. And that's something that I would tell any artist who's starting in any form of art. Everyone else who's giving you their opinion, that's what it is. It's an opinion. And some can be good, some can be bad, but you have to go with what feels right and true to yourself.
When we first signed our first album deal, Spotify didn't exist, and the value of masters was at an all-time low. And I think it's so important for artists to be able to have the ability to make money off of their music. I think touring is a whole other thing that it's become prohibitively expensive to do most places in the world. But being able to value music again in the same way that people value what maybe having organic produce or where their coffee comes from or where their fucking clothes come from. It's we should care about where the music comes from, how it's made, and compensate the people who make it fairly. Because when we don't do that, and when we force musicians of this new generation to essentially become part-time musicians, because that's what they are at this point, the new generation, they don't even see a possibility, many of them, for them to even have this be their career. So they're I'm going to have a day job and then I'm going to make music on the side. It dilutes the music. It dilutes the intention. Obviously, there are some geniuses out there, young geniuses who are doing amazing work, doing both of those things, and that's so commendable. But I think for the musicians who need the time to focus and be compensated for their music and take chances with their music and take risks, because if you can't do that and you feel afraid to do that because you're going to be broke, then it doesn't create a healthy way for music to evolve and change. And I think that's why, we see this kind of some level of stagnation in different parts of the music industry.
I think it's really hard right now because so many young artists feel and not just young artists, new artists, aspiring artists, feel like they're wearing so many hats that it really spreads them thin and you start to lose focus off of the music. But I do think if there's an interest for learning how to record yourself, learning how to do certain things to kind of create the world in which you're, trying to tell your story with your music, that can be helpful because the idea that someone's going to come in or a company's going to come in or a group of people are going to come in and just do everything for you and it's going to be within your vision and feel good. I think the more that you can learn about yourself as an artist and absorb and understand what you love and what you don't love and your taste, I think that's an important factor of, growing as an artist.
Yeah, I have a podcast called Point of Origin that's on SiriusXM. It's kind of like a big spot, guaranteed spins for each artist every month on the radio. And then beyond that, there is kind of like a longer form podcast for those who really want to delve into each artist. But since 2020, we've been not always just breaking artists, but I think Point of Origin has done a lot of great work in diversifying what alternative music is and changing the narrative that alternative music was never homogenous, that it's always been a story about like a melding of cultures. And it's been really inspiring for me as a musician to like talk to all these young artists and get inspired by them and some of the best ideas that I've had after or right after those interviews. And I just feel so excited for the future of this new generation of musician. It's an interesting thing because Point of Origin did start 4 years ago in the wake of like COVID and a lot of stuff that was happening in this country that made people to like have to really reckon with our cultural identities. And since then, that concept has been a little bit diluted. It's been like, I think there's a question I always ask every artist is about like, how do you feel about this weird fetishization of diversity that everyone says diversity, but it's just now like a media term for, let's just like let's not feel guilty anymore. And so it's a balance because I think the eventual goal is to like every artist just to be recognized for being artists, right? That's the goal. But I think the necessary evil is to have this moment where we have spotlights for artists of color. I think it's equally torn. It's a split 50-50 between the artists who I interview. Some of them are completely done with it. They hate it. It feels like it's just like they feel like they're being pimped. And then, others feel like, okay, well, this is my chance to shine that I would have never had otherwise. So let's take it and let's see where it goes. And I'm kind of also torn. I'm either side of that. Just continuing to appreciate artists, any artist, for what they do and like really caring about the intention they put behind it, and being able to have the media focus their attention on other stories, not because it's catchy or absolves them of anything, but because it's it's good and because it's a different narrative that people haven't heard before. And I think as we continue to do that, the work is already happening, and I'm feeling pretty optimistic about it.
Payam has recently gotten into coffee, so maybe he could tell you about his favorite espresso drink.
My favorite espresso drink currently right now is a flat white. It's a flat white. It's more or less like a cappuccino with just less milk. And
He has to fly to Sydney, Australia in
milk
order to have
foam.
one.
Yeah, I'm a whole milk guy. Yeah. But I will drink alternative milks, no problem, but
That's a great band name.
alternative
Alternative
milks.
milks.
I prefer whole milk. I don't know, it has like this sweetness and richness to it. It's just a good time.